My babysitter became my enemy, and then my child's stepmom. I'm Norah, 29, and this is the betrayal I saw coming too late. I was folding Lily's tiny pink pajamas when the doorbell rang. Through the kitchen window, I could see Chloe's familiar figure on the porch, her blonde hair catching the afternoon sunlight. She was early, as always, probably eager to start her shift, so she could squeeze in some study time after Lily went to bed. Hey, Norah. Chloe's voice carried that same cheerful energy that had made me hire her 6 months ago. At 22, she was pursuing her education degree while working part-time as a nanny. Perfect credentials, glowing references, and most importantly, Lily adored her. Thanks for coming early, I said, opening the door wider. I have that client meeting at 4, and traffic downtown has been insane lately. Chloe stepped inside, her canvas bag slung over her shoulder. No problem at all. Where's my favorite little girl? Nap time just ended. She's probably still groggy. I gestured toward the living room where soft murmurs indicated Lily was indeed stirring awake. As Chloe headed toward my daughter's room, I noticed something different about her today. She seemed more confident, almost glowing. Her usual college student attire had been replaced with a fitted dress and subtle makeup. Not that it was any of my business how she dressed, but the change struck me as odd. Actually, Chloe, before you go in there, I called after her. She turned, eyebrows raised expectantly. Are you interviewing somewhere today? You look really nice. A flush crept up her neck. Oh, just meeting some friends later. You know how it is. But something in her voice suggested otherwise. The way she avoided my eyes, the slight hesitation before answering, it reminded me of how I used to act when I was seeing someone new and trying to keep it secret from my roommates in college. Well, you look great, I said, grabbing my purse and car keys. Lily's already had lunch, and there are snacks in the pantry if she gets hungry. I should be back by 6. Take your time, Chloe replied, her smile returning. We'll have fun, won't we, Lily? My 3-year-old appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes with small fists. Chloe, she squealed, running toward her babysitter with open arms. Watching them embrace, I felt that familiar pang of guilt mixed with relief. Single motherhood was exhausting, and having someone Lily genuinely loved taking care of her made everything easier. Still, as I drove toward downtown, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting in our comfortable routine. The client meeting ran longer than expected. By the time I pulled into my driveway, it was nearly 7 o'clock. The house glowed warmly from within, and I could hear laughter through the windows. My heart lifted. There was nothing better than coming home to my daughter's joy. But when I opened the front door, the scene that greeted me stopped me cold. Chloe was sitting on my couch, Lily curled up beside her. But they weren't alone. A man I didn't recognize sat in my armchair, completely at ease, as if he belonged there. He was handsome in that effortless way some men possessed, dark hair, strong jawline, wearing a casual button-down that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Mommy. Lily jumped up and ran to me, seemingly oblivious to the awkwardness of the situation. Hey, sweetheart. I scooped her up, my eyes fixed on the stranger in my living room. Chloe, I wasn't expecting company. Chloe stood up quickly, her cheeks flushed. Norah, I'm so sorry. This is Jake. He just stopped by for a few minutes, and I know I should have asked first, but... It's fine, I interrupted, though it wasn't. Having strangers in my home around my daughter was definitely not fine, but I didn't want to cause a scene in front of Lily. Jake rose from the chair, extending his hand. You must be Norah. Chloe's told me so much about you and Lily. His handshake was firm, confident. There was something familiar about him, though I was certain we'd never met. Nice to meet you, Jake. I'm sorry, but I don't usually allow visitors when I'm not home. Of course, completely understandable, he said smoothly. I was just leaving anyway. As he gathered his jacket, I noticed him glance around the living room, his eyes lingering on family photos and taking in details like someone making mental notes. The observation made my skin crawl. Chloe, can I speak with you privately for a moment? I asked, setting Lily down. Actually, I should really get going too, Chloe said quickly. Early class tomorrow. Before I could protest, she was gathering her things and heading for the door. Jake followed, pausing to ruffle Lily's hair. See you later, kiddo. The casual familiarity of the gesture sent alarm bells ringing in my head. How many times had he been here? How well did he know my daughter? After they left, I knelt down to Lily's level. Sweetheart, has Jake been here before? Uh-huh. She nodded enthusiastically. He's funny. He knows magic tricks. My stomach dropped. How many times has he visited? Lily held up 3 fingers, then seemed to think about it, and added another. Maybe more? I like him, Mommy. He brings me cookies. That night, after Lily was asleep, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone. I needed to have a serious conversation with Chloe about boundaries, but I also didn't want to overreact. She was young, probably didn't fully understand the implications of having her boyfriend around while babysitting. But something nagged at me. The way Jake had looked at our family photos, the comfortable way he'd settled into my armchair, Lily's casual familiarity with him, it all felt wrong. I decided to text Chloe. Hey, can we talk about having visitors while you're babysitting? I'd prefer to discuss this before your next shift. Her response came quickly. Of course.
So sorry about that.
Won't happen again. But it did happen again, just more carefully. Over the next few weeks, I began noticing small changes. Lily would mention things Jake had said or done, despite my clear instruction to Chloe about no visitors. When I confronted her, Chloe claimed Lily was confused, mixing up stories from daycare with her babysitting time. Kids that age have such active imaginations, she said with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. But I knew my daughter. Lily was bright, articulate for her age, and rarely confused details about her daily activities. When she told me Jake had helped her build a tower with blocks, I believed her. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in late September. I'd told Chloe I would be working late, but my meeting was canceled at the last minute. Instead of texting her, I decided to surprise Lily with takeout from her favorite restaurant. I used my key to enter quietly, planning to sneak up on my daughter for a playful surprise. But the voices I heard from the living room made me freeze in the entryway. She's really struggling financially, Chloe was saying. The house is nice, but I've seen the bills stacked on her counter. Credit card statements, past due notices. That's unfortunate, Jake's voice responded. A single mother, it must be difficult. She works so hard, but I don't think she's very good with money. The other day, she was on the phone with her bank about overdraft fees. My blood ran cold. Those conversations had been private, conducted in my bedroom with the door closed. How had Chloe overheard them? And more importantly, why was she discussing my personal business with her boyfriend? Where's Lily during all this financial stress? Jake asked. Daycare mostly, but Norah's been asking me to take on more hours. I think she's hoping to get a second job. I wasn't hoping to get a second job. I was actively looking for one, but that was information I'd shared with Chloe in confidence, during a vulnerable moment when I'd been particularly worried about money. Must be hard on the kid, Jake mused. All that instability. Lily's amazing though. So smart, so loving. She deserves better than constantly worrying about whether Mommy can pay the bills. The way Chloe said Mommy, with just a hint of disdain, made my heart race with anger. I was about to storm into the room when Jake spoke again. You've really gotten attached to her, haven't you? Lily's special. She's like the daughter I never had. The possessiveness in her voice was unmistakable. This wasn't the sweet, caring babysitter I'd trusted with my child. This was someone who had crossed a line I didn't even know existed. I backed toward the door, my mind racing. I needed to think, to plan, before confronting this situation. But as I reached for the handle, it slipped from my grip and slammed shut. The voices in the living room stopped abruptly. Norah? Chloe called out. Is that you? I had no choice but to face them. Walking into the living room, I found them sitting suspiciously far apart on the couch, Jake looking at his phone as if he'd been checking messages all along. Hi, I said, forcing a smile. Meeting got canceled, so I thought I'd surprise Lily with dinner. She's upstairs playing, Chloe said quickly. We were just talking. So I heard. I set the takeout bags on the coffee table, watching their faces carefully. Jake, this is becoming a regular thing, isn't it? He had the grace to look uncomfortable. I didn't mean to overstep. Chloe mentioned you were working late, and I thought. You thought you'd make yourselves comfortable in my living room and discuss my personal finances? The color drained from Chloe's face. Norah, we weren't. I heard everything, I said quietly. The comments about my bills, my bank account, my overdraft fees. Care to explain how you know about private conversations I had in my bedroom? Chloe's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Sometimes when I'm cleaning up after Lily, I hear things. You're not here to clean my house, Chloe. You're here to watch my daughter. Jake stood up. This is clearly between you two. I should go. Yes, you should, I agreed. And I don't want you back in my house. After he left, Chloe and I stared at each other across the living room. The comfortable relationship we'd built over 6 months had crumbled in a matter of minutes. I'm sorry, she said finally. I didn't realize how it sounded. How it sounded. Chloe, you violated my privacy and discussed my personal struggles with a stranger. In my own home. Jake's not a stranger. We've been dating for 3 months. He's a stranger to me, and that's what matters when it comes to my daughter's safety. Chloe's expression shifted, becoming defensive. I would never put Lily in danger. I love her. I know you do, but love doesn't excuse crossing boundaries. We talked for another hour, with me setting clear rules about visitors and privacy. Chloe apologized repeatedly, promising it would never happen again. Against my better judgment, I decided to give her one more chance. Finding reliable childcare was difficult, and despite everything, Lily adored her. But trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to fully repair. Over the following weeks, I found myself constantly questioning Chloe's actions. Was she following the rules, or just being more careful about hiding her violations? When Lily mentioned new games or activities, I wondered if Jake had been involved. The easy relationship we'd once shared was replaced by a tense politeness that felt forced and uncomfortable. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Friday evening in early November. I was at my office, finishing up paperwork for the weekend, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my home number. Hello? Norah? Chloe's voice was strained. I need to tell you something. What's wrong? Is Lily okay? She's fine, she's sleeping. But there's something you should know about Jake. My grip tightened on the phone. What about him? He's not who I thought he was. Norah, I think I made a terrible mistake. What kind of mistake? Can you come home? I don't want to talk about this over the phone. The 20-minute drive felt like an eternity. I called Chloe twice, but she didn't answer. By the time I reached my house, my hands were shaking. Chloe met me at the door, her face pale and drawn. Thank God you're here. What happened? She led me to the kitchen and pulled out her laptop. I was doing some research for a class project, and I decided to look up Jake's social media. Just curious about his background. She turned the screen toward me, showing a Facebook profile. Jake's photo smiled back at me, but the name underneath read, Jacob Morrison. So he goes by Jacob professionally, I said, confused. That's not unusual. Look at his work history, Chloe said, pointing to the screen. My blood went cold as I read. Jacob Morrison was listed as a family attorney specializing in custody cases. His profile boasted about his success rate in securing favorable outcomes for his clients. He's a lawyer, I whispered. A custody lawyer, Chloe corrected. Norah, he asked me so many questions about you, about Lily, about your financial situation. I thought he was just being interested in my life, but now you think he was gathering information. She nodded miserably. There's more. I did some digging and found out he recently handled a case for a man named Ryan Chen. The father was trying to get custody of his daughter from his ex-wife. My heart stopped. Ryan Chen? As in Ryan, Lily's father? The man who had walked out on us when Lily was 6 months old, claiming he wasn't ready for fatherhood. The man who hadn't paid child support in over a year, who had missed every birthday and holiday, who couldn't even remember to call on Christmas. I think Jake has been using me to get information about you and Lily, Chloe said, her voice barely above a whisper. I think Ryan is planning to file for custody. The room spun around me. Everything made sense now. Jake's comfortable familiarity with my home, his interest in my financial struggles, his bonding with Lily. He hadn't been Chloe's boyfriend. He'd been Ryan's spy. How long?
I asked.
How long has he been using you? Chloe's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. Maybe from the beginning. Norah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Where is he now? I don't know. I confronted him about the lawyer thing, and he left. He said he'd explain everything later, but he seemed angry. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. Norah, this is Jake. We need to talk. There are things you don't understand about Ryan's intentions regarding Lily. Meet me tomorrow at Riverside Park, 2 p.m. Come alone. I showed the message to Chloe, who gasped. You can't meet him. What if it's dangerous? I have to, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I need to know what Ryan is planning. That night, after Chloe left, I held Lily close as she slept. My beautiful, innocent daughter had no idea that her world might be about to change forever. The father who had abandoned her was apparently ready to fight for her now. But why? The next afternoon, I arrived at Riverside Park 10 minutes early. Jake was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking the water. He looked different, more serious, less charming. Thank you for coming, he said as I approached. Start talking, I replied, remaining standing. What does Ryan want? Jake sighed. He wants Lily. Full custody. On what grounds? He's been absent from her life for over 2 years. His circumstances have changed. He's remarried, financially stable, can provide a more secure environment. More secure than what? I've given Lily everything she needs. Have you? Jake's tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel, but the words still stung. The financial records show a different story. Late payments, overdraft fees, credit card debt. Ryan's prepared to argue that Lily deserves a more stable home. Financial struggles don't make me an unfit mother. No, but they're part of a larger pattern. The constant babysitters, the long work hours, the stress. You manipulated Chloe to spy on me. Jake had the decency to look ashamed. That wasn't the original plan. I was hired to do background research, standard procedure for custody cases. But when I learned about Chloe, about her access to your home and daily life, you used a young woman's feelings to gather intelligence on me and my daughter. I'm not proud of it, he admitted. But Ryan has rights too. He's Lily's father. He's a stranger to her. He chose to be a stranger. People change, Norah.
Ryan's changed.
He wants to be a father now. And you think that matters more than the life I've built with Lily? Jake was quiet for a long moment. I think a child deserves to have both parents in her life when possible. Where was he when she had pneumonia last winter? Where was he when she took her first steps, said her first words, started potty training? Where was he for any of it? He was young, scared, not ready. But he's ready now. I laughed bitterly. How convenient. Now that the hard part is over, now that she's past the sleepless nights and constant care, now he's ready to be a father. The core will focus on what's best for Lily going forward, not what happened in the past. And you think removing her from the only parent she's ever known is what's best for her? Jake stood up, facing me directly. I think having a father who can provide financial security, a stable home, and a loving stepmother might be what's best for her. My blood froze. Stepmother? Ryan remarried 6 months ago. His wife is wonderful with children. She's a teacher, actually. They have a beautiful home in the suburbs, good schools, everything a child could want. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. This isn't about Ryan suddenly wanting to be a father. This is about his new wife wanting a ready-made family. Jake didn't deny it. Does it matter why, if the result is better for Lily? Yes, it matters. She's not a prize to be won or a project to complete someone's perfect family picture. She's my daughter. She's Ryan's daughter, too. I stared at him, This man who had invaded my life through deception and manipulation, who is now calmly discussing tearing my family apart. What does he want from me? Cooperation. He's hoping you'll agree to shared custody voluntarily. It would be better for everyone, especially Lily, if this doesn't go to court. And if I refuse? Then he'll file for full custody and present evidence that you're unable to provide a stable environment for Lily. Evidence you helped gather. Jake nodded grimly. Evidence I helped gather. I turned to leave, then stopped. One more question. Does Chloe know about any of this?
No.
She was never supposed to find out about my profession. She genuinely cares about you and Lily.
Good.
Because I'm going to need her help. As I walked away, Jake called after me. Norah, Ryan's not the enemy here. He just wants to be part of his daughter's life. I didn't turn around. He should have thought of that 3 years ago. That evening, I sat Chloe down and told her everything. Her face cycled through disbelief, anger, and guilt as the full scope of the deception became clear. I can't believe I fell for it, she said, tears streaming down her face. I thought he cared about me. You were manipulated by a professional. This isn't your fault. But I gave him information about you, about Lily. I let him into your house. Let him get close to her. We can't change what happened, but we can control what happens next. Chloe looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. What do you mean? I mean, I'm going to fight for my daughter, and I'm going to need proof of what Jake and Ryan have been doing. What kind of proof? I pulled out my phone and showed her the recording app I'd activated before meeting Jake at the park. The kind that shows they've been engaging in deceptive practices to build their custody case. For the next week, Chloe and I worked together to compile evidence of the elaborate scheme. She provided screenshots of conversations with Jake where he'd ask leading questions about my finances and parenting. I documented every instance where Jake had been in my home without permission, every boundary that had been crossed. But our amateur detective work was interrupted by a knock at the door on Thursday evening. I opened it to find a man I barely recognized. Ryan had filled out since I'd last seen him, his boyish features now more mature. He wore an expensive suit and carried himself with a confidence that was new. Hello, Norah. Ryan. I didn't invite him in. Can we talk? Is your lawyer hiding in the bushes? Or is this conversation being recorded too? He had the grace to look uncomfortable. I fired Jake. What he did was unethical, and I don't want to win this way. Win what, exactly? The right to be part of my daughter's life. You had that right 3 years ago. You chose to walk away. I was 25, Norah. I was terrified and stupid and completely unprepared for fatherhood. But I've grown up. Congratulations. That doesn't give you the right to disrupt Lily's life now. She's my daughter, too. Biology doesn't make you a father, Ryan. Being there does. Showing up does. You've done neither. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from our brief relationship. I know I screwed up. I know I missed out on so much. But I want to make it right. By taking her away from me? By being part of her life. Look, I don't want full custody. I just want visitation, maybe weekends. I want her to know she has a father who loves her. Do you love her, Ryan? Or do you love the idea of her? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know her well enough to love her specifically yet. But I love her because she's mine, because she's part of me. And I want the chance to love her for who she is. It was the most honest thing he'd said since arriving. And your wife? Where does she fit into this? Sarah wants to meet Lily, but she understands this is complicated. She's not trying to replace you. Does she know you hired a lawyer to spy on me? That was my idea, not hers. And like I said, I fired him. I studied Ryan's face, looking for signs of deception. He seemed sincere, but then again, I thought Jake was Chloe's boyfriend. I need time to think about this, I said finally. Of course. But Norah, I'm not going away. One way or another, I'm going to be part of Lily's life. I'd rather do it with your cooperation than against your wishes. After he left, I called my sister Emma, the only person I trusted completely with this situation. He's right about one thing, she said after I'd explained everything. He's not going away. And if you fight him in court, Lily will be caught in the middle. So, what do you suggest? Supervised visits. Start small. See how he handles actually being around a 3-year-old for more than 5 minutes. And if he's good with her, then you figure out the next step. But Norah, you can't protect Lily from having a father forever. If he's genuinely changed, if he's really committed to being part of her life, then maybe that's not a bad thing. I knew Emma was right, but the thought of sharing Lily with anyone, especially the man who had abandoned us, felt like losing a piece of my soul. The first supervised visit took place the following Saturday at a local park. I brought Lily. Ryan brought his wife, Sarah, and I tried to ignore the knot in my stomach. Sarah was nothing like I'd expected. She was warm, gentle, and genuinely interested in Lily, without being pushy. She let Ryan take the lead while offering support when he seemed overwhelmed. And he was overwhelmed. Lily was shy at first, clinging to my leg and hiding behind me when Ryan tried to engage her. But gradually, his patient persistence won her over. He pushed her on the swings, helped her climb the jungle gym, and listened intently as she chattered about her favorite books and toys. "She's amazing," he said to me as we watched Lily play on the slide. "She's so smart, so funny. She's perfect." "She is," I agreed, my heart aching as I watched my daughter warm up to her father. "I'm sorry, Norah. For everything. For leaving, for the lawyer, for making this harder than it had to be." Being sorry doesn't undo 3 years of absence, Ryan. No, but maybe it's a start. As the afternoon progressed, I found myself relaxing slightly. Ryan was awkward with Lily, clearly out of practice with small children, but he was trying. And Sarah was a natural, engaging Lily in games and conversations without overstepping boundaries. When it was time to leave, Lily surprised me by hugging Ryan goodbye. "Will I see you again?" she asked him. "Would you like that?" he replied. She nodded solemnly. "Can you bring Sarah too? She's nice." Driving home, Lily chattered excitedly about her new friend Sarah and the funny man who looked like her. She didn't understand that Ryan was her father yet, but she'd enjoyed spending time with him. Over the next few weeks, we established a routine of Saturday visits. Sometimes at the park, sometimes at child-friendly restaurants, always with me present. Gradually, I began to see a different side of Ryan, one that was patient, attentive, and genuinely interested in getting to know his daughter. But just as I was beginning to trust this new arrangement, everything changed again. It was a Tuesday evening in early December when Chloe called, her voice shaking with excitement and fear. "Norah, you need to know something about Sarah." "What about her?" "I've been doing some research, trying to understand why Ryan suddenly wanted custody after all this time. I found some court records from Sarah's previous marriage." My stomach dropped. "What kind of court records?" "She was married before, and she had custody of her stepson from that marriage. But when she and her ex-husband divorced, she fought for partial custody of a child who wasn't biologically hers." "That's not necessarily suspicious, Chloe. Step-parents can form strong bonds with their stepchildren." "That's what I thought too, until I found the restraining order." The world tilted around me. What restraining order? Her ex-husband filed one against her 6 months after their divorce. He claimed she was stalking him and his son, showing up at the child's school and activities uninvited, trying to maintain contact against court orders. Did she violate it? She was arrested twice for violation of the restraining order. The second time, she was caught trying to pick up the boy from school, claiming she was authorized to do so. My hands began to shake. "Chloe, are you absolutely certain about this?" "I have copies of all the documents." "Norah, I think Sarah has an unhealthy attachment to playing mother to other people's children. And I think that's why Ryan suddenly wants custody of Lily." The pieces fell into place with terrifying clarity. Sarah's immediate warmth toward Lily, her natural way with children, her eagerness to be part of our visits, it all took on a sinister cast. "I need to see those documents," I said. "I'm coming over now." An hour later, Chloe and I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by printouts of court records, police reports, and divorce proceedings. The picture they painted was deeply disturbing. Sarah Morrison had a pattern of becoming inappropriately attached to children who weren't hers. In her first marriage, she'd inserted herself into her husband's custody arrangements with his ex-wife, eventually causing so much conflict that visitation had to be suspended. After the divorce, she'd escalated her attempts to maintain contact with her former stepson, leading to legal action. "There's more," Chloe said, pulling out another set of documents. After the restraining order was issued, she was required to undergo psychological evaluation as part of her probation. The report recommends ongoing therapy for what they call inappropriate maternal attachment disorder. Which means what, exactly? From what I can understand, she becomes obsessively attached to children and believes she can provide better care than their biological mothers. The psychologist's report mentions her tendency to view biological mothers as inadequate or unfit. My blood ran cold. How long has she been married to Ryan? 8 months. But they were only dating for 3 months before the engagement. Fast courtship for someone with his track record of commitment issues. Unless someone else was pushing the timeline. I stared at the documents, trying to process the implications. You think Sarah pushed Ryan to marry her quickly, so she could gain access to Lily? I think Sarah identified Ryan as a man with a daughter he wasn't actively parenting, and she saw an opportunity. Get him to marry her, then convince him to fight for custody, so she could play mother to Lily. But why would Ryan go along with it? He seemed genuinely remorseful about abandoning Lily. Maybe he was remorseful. Maybe Sarah used that guilt to manipulate him into taking action. Or maybe he really does want to be a father now, and he doesn't realize his wife has ulterior motives. I thought about Sarah's behavior during our visits, how she'd watched Lily with an intensity that went beyond casual interest, how she'd remembered every detail Lily shared about her daily life, how she'd started bringing small gifts and treats without being asked. I need to confront Ryan, I said. Is that safe? If Sarah is as unstable as these documents suggest, what might she do if she feels threatened? It was a valid concern, but I couldn't continue supervised visits, knowing what I now knew about Sarah's history. Lily's safety had to come first. I called Ryan that evening and arranged to meet him the next day, alone, without Sarah. We met at a coffee shop downtown, far from Lily's school and our usual haunts. Ryan looked confused and slightly annoyed at the secrecy. What's this about, Norah? If you're having second thoughts about the visits, we can talk about adjusting the schedule. I'm having second thoughts about Sarah, I said, sliding the folder of documents across the table. Ryan opened it, his expression shifting from confusion to shock as he read. Where did you get these? Does it matter? Is it true? He closed the folder without finishing the documents. It's complicated. Explain it to me. Sarah had a difficult divorce. Her ex-husband was vindictive, used his son as a weapon against her. She was trying to maintain a relationship with a child she'd helped raise for 3 years. By violating court orders and stalking them, she was fighting for a child she loved. Sometimes that means crossing lines. I stared at him in disbelief. Ryan, she was arrested for trying to take someone else's child from school. How is that fighting for love? You don't understand what it's like to have a child ripped away from you. Actually, I do. I understand it perfectly, because that's exactly what you're trying to do to me. The accusation hung in the air between us. Ryan's face flushed with anger or embarrassment. I couldn't tell which. That's different. Lily is my biological daughter. And Sarah's stepson wasn't her biological child, but she couldn't let go. Ryan, don't you see the pattern here? There's no pattern. Sarah loves children. She's a natural mother. To other people's children. Children she has no legal right to parent. Ryan stood up abruptly. I'm not listening to this. You're trying to destroy my marriage because you don't want to share custody. I'm trying to protect my daughter from a woman with a documented history of inappropriate behavior toward children. Sarah has never done anything inappropriate with Lily.
Yet.
But according to these documents, her escalation follows a predictable pattern. First, she forms an intense attachment. Then she begins to view the biological mother as inadequate. Finally, she takes steps to remove the child from what she perceives as an unsuitable environment. Ryan grabbed the folder, his jaw clenched with anger. These are lies spread by bitter ex-husbands. Sarah is nothing like what you're suggesting. Then prove it, I said. Take a break from the visits. Give me time to verify this information independently. Absolutely not. We're not putting our relationship with Lily on hold because of your paranoia. My paranoia? I stood up, matching his anger. Ryan, I trusted you enough to let you back into her life. I'm asking for one thing, time to ensure my daughter's safety. Our daughter, he corrected sharply. And Sarah is going to be her stepmother whether you like it or not. The finality in his voice chilled me. This wasn't a discussion anymore. It was a declaration of war. That night, I called my lawyer and filed an emergency motion to suspend Ryan's visitation pending a full psychological evaluation of both him and Sarah. It was a drastic step, but the documents Chloe had found painted a picture I couldn't ignore. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. I spent every day preparing, gathering character witnesses, documenting Lily's stable home environment, and praying I was making the right choice. But Sarah was done waiting. I was at work the next Thursday when my phone rang. Lily's daycare director sounded nervous. Miss Peterson, there's been an incident. A woman came to pick up Lily today, claiming to be her stepmother. She had identification showing she was Sarah Morrison and said you'd arranged for her to collect Lily early. My heart stopped. Did you let her take Lily? No, of course not. She's not on Lily's authorized pickup list. But she was very insistent, said there was a family emergency. She knew details about Lily's routine, her teacher's name, what she'd had for lunch. She seemed to know her very well. Where is Lily now? Safe with me in my office. But Miss Peterson, this woman was very upset when we refused to release Lily to her. She said she had every right to her stepdaughter and that we'd be hearing from her lawyers. I'm on my way. I called Ryan immediately, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried Sarah's number, also voicemail. My hands shaking, I drove to the daycare as fast as legally possible. Lily was coloring peacefully in the director's office, unaware of the drama surrounding her. Mommy, she said brightly. Mrs. Henderson says we had a visitor today. That's right, sweetheart. Are you okay? Uh-huh. But the lady seemed sad that I couldn't go with her. She said she was my new mommy. My blood froze. She said what? That she was my new mommy, and that we were going to live together in a big house with a garden. But Mrs. Henderson said I had to wait for you. I thanked Mrs. Henderson profusely and took Lily home, my mind racing. Sarah's attempt to pick up Lily wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. She'd researched the daycare's procedures, learned staff names, and prepared a story designed to seem legitimate. This was exactly the kind of escalation the court documents had warned about. That evening, Ryan finally returned my calls. I heard about the daycare incident, he said without preamble. Sarah was trying to help. She thought you'd forgotten to arrange pickup. I never asked her to pick up Lily, and she's not authorized to do so. It was a misunderstanding. Ryan, she told Lily she was her new mommy. She tried to convince the staff there was a family emergency. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's attempted kidnapping. Don't be dramatic. Sarah loves Lily and wanted to spend time with her. By lying to daycare staff and trying to take her without permission? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Maybe she got carried away, but her intentions were good. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, Ryan. I'm filing a police report. If you do that, we'll have no choice but to escalate this custody battle. Then escalate it. Because I will not put my daughter at risk to preserve your marriage. The line went dead. 2 days later, I received papers indicating that Ryan was filing for emergency custody of Lily, claiming I was an unfit mother who was keeping his daughter from him out of spite. Sarah had provided an affidavit describing me as emotionally unstable and vindictive, painting herself as a loving stepmother being kept from a child she cared about. The hearing was a nightmare. Ryan and Sarah arrived with their new lawyer, a sharp woman who made Jake look like an amateur. They presented a compelling case. Ryan was a reformed man trying to build a relationship with his daughter, while I was a bitter ex using Lily as a weapon against his happiness. Sarah took the stand and delivered an Oscar-worthy performance, describing her love for Lily and her desire to provide a stable, two-parent home. She dismissed the daycare incident as a miscommunication and painted her previous legal troubles as the vindictive actions of an abusive ex-husband. When I presented the court documents detailing Sarah's history, their lawyer argued that past relationships had no bearing on her current fitness as a stepmother. The judge seemed sympathetic to their position.
But then Chloe took the stand.
She testified about Jake's deception, the months of intelligence gathering, and the elaborate scheme to build a custody case. She provided screenshots of conversations where Jake had asked leading questions about my finances and parenting. Most damaging of all, she had recorded a phone conversation with Jake where he'd admitted that Sarah had been the driving force behind Ryan's sudden interest in custody. She wanted a ready-made family, Chloe testified, reading from her notes. Jake said Sarah had convinced Ryan that Lily deserved better than a struggling single mother and that they could provide the stability she needed. The judge's expression shifted as the full scope of the manipulation became clear. Sarah's face went pale as her carefully constructed narrative crumbled. In the end, the judge ruled that Ryan could continue supervised visits, but only with a court-appointed supervisor, not Sarah. Furthermore, Sarah was prohibited from any contact with Lily pending a full psychological evaluation. Ryan was furious. "This isn't over, Norah. Lily deserves to know her father, and she deserves to have Sarah in her life too." "Maybe," I replied. "But that's for Lily to decide when she's old enough to understand what that means." 6 months later, Ryan and Sarah divorced. According to the court records Chloe helped me track down, Ryan had finally discovered the extent of Sarah's obsession with Lily. Apparently, she'd been creating elaborate scrapbooks of Lily's photos, planning a bedroom for her in their house, and researching schools in their district, all without discussing it with Ryan. The breaking point came when Ryan found Sarah parked outside Lily's daycare, just watching. When he confronted her, she broke down and confessed that she couldn't stop thinking about Lily, that she felt like Lily's real mother in a way I could never be. Ryan, to his credit, immediately filed for divorce and voluntarily terminated his parental rights. He sent me a letter apologizing for everything and explaining that he couldn't trust his own judgment when it came to relationships and didn't want to put Lily at risk again. Today, Lily is 4 years old and thriving. She occasionally asks about the funny man from the park, but she's moved on to new interests and friendships. Chloe is still her babysitter, and now one of my closest friends. We never talk about Jake or what happened, but sometimes I catch her looking at Lily with a protectiveness that goes beyond professional care. I thought our story was over, that we'd survived the worst betrayal imaginable and come out stronger. But yesterday, I received a letter that changed everything. It was from Sarah, postmarked from a town 3 hours away. Inside was a single photograph, a picture of Lily playing at the park, taken just last week. On the back, in Sarah's handwriting, were 4 words that made my blood run cold. "She looks lonely without me.